Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, brought to you by Big Andy Media, the official sponsor of, so far, all of the Friday episodes of Andy's Chomping at the Bit. In the near future, there will be select episodes that are not sponsored by Andy's Chomping at the Bit. I can go into that later. But today's episode is going to be about doubt. And before I get into that, I also want to mention that in a couple weeks, I'm going to do an episode on. Um, it's going to be essentially a question answer episode. I've had a few people come up to me over the last, really over the last few months, uh, and have asked me if I were to talk about this or that, and they aren't long enough necessarily to go into a whole episode on, but I thought it would be fun to do an episode where I address certain questions. It's not necessarily advice things, or it can be, I guess, but it'd be more or less along the lines of, um, you know, how I've dealt with something or how I see something, my take on something, how, something that come up in my experience, whatever it may be. It'll be the opportunity where you can, um, where I can address those things. So you will have the opportunity, if at any time you can message me at my uh, YouTube or Facebook pages, and whether it be comment or direct message, and I will do my best to look over the question. And unless you specify otherwise, I will be sure to keep you anonymous when I go through that question and answer it or discuss it. Um, Other than that, let's go to doubt. And so for me, doubt is it is the one big obstacle I feel that I still have to really, really um, address. I mean, I address the other things too. I still work on trying my best to work on everything across the board. Uh, but doubt is the one that I'm furthest behind in. So if self awareness was like my superpower, then doubt would no doubt be my kryptonite. It'd be my weakness. uh, I I've gotten good at accepting certain aspects. And when I become self aware of the doubt, I can do a decent job of using that awareness to know or to rationalize the moment, understand that okay, well, is this just a what if fear in my head? Is this me thinking ahead? Is this me giving too much power to a tragic incident in the past, or is it something that I should be you know reconsidering? And one of the struggles I also have with that is sometimes I overthink. I know I'm not unique on that aspect, but it's definitely something I need to improve on. I need to really um, I need to gain um, some more strategies and improve on the ones I already have for addressing that aspect. One of the things I am fortunate on starting as of a couple months ago is a pros and cons list for things. That helps a lot with second guessing. That helps with a lot with doubt. And the key thing is when I'm writing the stuff down, I don't write it down with the intention of making a decision right away. The intent is that if there's a big decision that I'm torn on, I wait, depending on the significance, usually 24 to 48 hours minimum on the situation. And I can create a pros and cons list. It also gives me time to reach out to people, whether it be professional or personal, someone who has an experience in the situation, and I can talk to them about the situation um, to the best of my ability, sticking with facts, but then also giving my two struggles on the incidences, and so that's helped me getting through some of these doubt moments. far as the indecisiveness at times. And that part I've gotten pretty darn good at, um, compared to the other part. So it's relatively speaking. Um, the other side of it is more hesitation in general. I know what I want to do, I know what I should do, and I'm okay with the result regardless. But for some part of my brain, there's that part that wants to hesitate. That's like, I don't know about that. Do you really want to go through that? Um, and it hasn't been anything as far as the negative too much. I've been pretty um, pretty comfortable on that side of decisions for the most part. As far as as far as addiction goes, definitely. But I think that the doubt part comes more on let's go with an example here. um, when I created Big Andy Media, I knew I was getting into a venture that I had very little experience in as far as the business side of things. I knew that I had the ability to speak. I knew I had the ability to do voiceovers, which will be coming in the future with Big Andy Media. That's on the animation side. I knew that I had no experience in animation, but I was starting to learn, and I fell in love with the process. Um, and and then writing. I knew I was good at creative writing. I knew I was great at music. But once again, that business side, I didn't really have much experience in. I was blessed to have run into some people that did have experience with it, and I was able to speak with them and pick their brains a bit and learn from them. Of course, learning from them and applying what they taught, it is two different things, and that's where doubt becomes the struggle. When someone gives you or in my situation, when someone gave me a very good path, a very good understanding of, okay, these are the things you should do, and then applying that, you know that you got to take certain risks. And there's a very, in my mind, a very clear difference between taking calculated risks and gambling. Um, if you're betting on sports, it's gambling. If you're rolling dice, it's gambling. Calculated risks, you're balancing out, you have at least some control in the matter on calculated risks. Applying for a job, for instance, this is um, you go into an interview. It's what I feel is a low risk, high reward. So if I don't get the interview, well, I gained experience. I had the opportunity at least. Um, and hopefully I learned something that I can improve upon before the next whatever situation, right? And if I get the opportunity, if I get a job, then it's even better. Now I can take the skills that got me the job, and I can apply them, and I can grow, and I can learn within that area. So there's a lot of neat potential in a job, and so that's it. Just the example where that's not gambling; it's calculated. Because even in the meantime, you can still be applying to other opportunities. So, um, gambling would be if you throw all your eggs in one basket and you apply to this one job and you're not doing anything else. That would be gambling. Anyway, going back to the doubt and Big Andy Media. So I didn't understand um, the struggle I had so much with applying knowledge I have until I really started getting into Big Andy Media. And I found, and I'm very fortunate people are honest with me for the most part when I bounce ideas off of them. I've learned to not bounce ideas too much with family because they have their own bias. They'll either say something's a good idea because they don't want to hurt my feelings, or with their own personal fears of failure, they'll they'll try. Well, are you sure you want that? And that's nothing against them. It's coming from a good place. It's just not healthy for me to take that kind of feedback in that situation. But I do have friends and I have people that are really good acquaintances, and through both friends and acquaintances, I can ask uh, I can ask some of these more. Uh, I can get more feedback on some of these ideas. One of the ideas, and this was actually a big part of Big Andy Media when I first came up with the idea, was using the talent I have at doing voices and with music and creating unique custom ringtones, and I found out fairly recently that there probably isn't a whole lot of a market for that anymore. One, most things are free as far as ringtones are concerned. Um, and there's apps already out there with a gazillion different ringtones already available for free. So, and I'm grateful that I got that feedback because I could have spent a whole lot of time and energy um, on something that, it was really popular 10 years ago, definitely 15 years ago. But it's at that point now where it might be phasing out and crossing out of the relevance. And that's okay. I appreciate the feedback. And is it something that maybe I will still do someday? Possibly, just for fun. I don't know. And if it does take off with that just for fun moment, great. But I needed that feedback. But sometimes I got to be careful on that too because it can stunt me, it can make me second guess when I get a one moment where I have an idea and then it's like it's kind of um, you miss that window for that. And as far as history goes and technology, um, those can lead to that doubt can spread, that frustration can spread across. um, and there's still other forms of doubt too that I get, and like I said, this is where self-awareness, it kind of balances out a little bit. It doesn't necessarily mean I rest on not improving in this area, but the other, when you're expecting something, news or whatever kind, um, and there's that big unknown, it's you're able to accept either outcome, and this, I'm just giving this scenario. You're okay with either outcome, but the not knowing part leads your brain, my brain, I should be more specific, to gravitate towards the what if on the negative side or on the less preferred outcome. And so, and regardless of the outcome, once you have an outcome, you can accept it and go. But when that doubt goes in, it's almost like it feeds that what if bug in your head, which pulls you out of the present. It pulls you into this future concept that you're wasting away on. You're wasting your present time because you're thinking of this snowball of what if. I'm not saying it's not necessarily okay to think ahead sometimes. It's actually, I mean, personally, I find that planning is very good. Uh, but there's reasoning within that. uh, Plan A doesn't always work. And if you are making a plan B, C, D, E, F, G, to an extensive level, you can waste a lot of time and miss out on plan A. So, but I've had those moments though where I the unknown. So the one that I struggled with during my low points and right when I was coming out of those low points is when I was facing the consequences of my poor decisions, some of my poor decisions, and I was in jail for a while. And the worst part about jail wasn't, I mean, wasn't exactly the best place to begin with. Time goes so slow there, but it goes extra slow before you've been sentenced because you don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know the outcome. They could say when you get to the sentencing, they could say, well, we're going to give you time served and probation, or we're just going to give you time served. Or they can say, we're going to give you 3 more months. Or they could even say, well, we're going to give you 5 to 10 years. They have options there. They have guidelines, and they have what they call a PSI recommendation, a pre-sentence investigation recommendation. But they don't have to follow that recommendation, as I found out from Nuevo County. But once you have your answer, once you have the outcome, it doesn't bother me as much because now I know what to expect. It's the unknown that ties with doubt, and the combo between doubt and the unknown feeding with each other, it creates fear. And I've talked about fear before, how it can be crippling, and that's where self-awareness comes in too. Learning when you get to those moments, what you have the power over, what you don't. So it's in that moment beforehand where the doubt comes. You hear the pre-sentence, getting the moment when I had a pre-sentence investigation recommendation that for, say, Ottawa County, right? They gave me a pre-sentence. The recommendation was 6 months. But there was no, what they call a cop's agreement. There was no guarantee of you're not going to get prison, you're not going to get this or that. So I really didn't know completely what to expect. And I had a judge that was known for going on the higher end of guidelines. So I had a lot of I shouldn't say too much. I had a little bit of doubt on what was going to happen, and I didn't exactly have the best public defender in Ottawa County. Had excellent public defender in Muskegon County. I'm not going to trash talk anyone, but anyway, long story short, I went into the courtroom, and I was taking a wonderful class within Ottawa County Jail. It was a cognitive behavioral treatment class, CBT, which is, it's learning things like pausing, learning how to respond instead of react. It's an excellent class, and it's one of those things you can always take and get a refresher on. It's a very significant part of like smart recovery. You're training your brain. But anyway, I was taking that one of those courses, and so when I went into sentencing, I requested, and this, believe me, sounds crazy to a lot of people, including the judge, but I requested that instead of, if possible from her, that I was taking a class in jail, and I requested if I could get 7 months instead of the recommended 6 months, so that way I'd be able to finish the course and graduate from the course. Because at that moment, sincerely, I valued completing that class. I valued taking the opportunity to really focus on myself and grow in that environment, instead of potentially being free earlier, and to give me a little more time before going to another location outside that was not nearly as pleasant as far, or neither one was pleasant, but much worse, I should say, as far as incarcerated treatment. But and I remember the Judge Miedema, she kind of looked at me like, okay, and but the doubt in my head was like, is she, and I owned up to also what I had done, and that was sincerely owned up to it. It wasn't just me saying what the judge wanted to hear. I legit had told her that, I'm aware of what I did, and it was definitely a poor choice. I was struggling with addiction, but that does not excuse my behavior. I was aware that what I was doing was wrong still. Um, my addiction was very strong too, but nonetheless, I knew better, and that I owned up to my decision. And I also let her know what I'd done, what I've been doing since, and what I continue to do, and what I still actually do today. And that is continue to work on myself and use the resources available, any and all resources, to the best of my ability that I can use to help myself to continue to grow, not just in my recovery, but as a person as a whole. So I owned up on my end on that, and I've held up on that end too. Um, but the doubt side of things, it didn't hurt like I thought it would. It wasn't nearly as bad when I took that step of courage and went past the doubt. Um, and it's happened many times as far as with my addiction. Owning up, or telling someone the truth on my past, not trying to sugarcoat it or hide it. Like I said, this ties a lot with fear, uh, because you doubt. There's that part of your brain that my brain that wants to say, well, if you do this, you're going to scare the person away, like the dating world. Or if you do this, the employer is not going to want to hire you. Um, and there's some truth to that sometimes. But I've learned to also look at it this way. So, in the employer world, if someone, if that was a deal breaker for an employer at the time of the interview, it inevitably would have been a deal breaker later on, or likely would have been a deal breaker later on the second they found out. Which they would have, because I have a record. It's not. I mean, I just mentioned that I had made poor choices and spent time incarcerated. So obviously there's a record. So there was really no sense in trying to hide that, and trying to sugarcoat it wouldn't help either. At that point, I figured my best bet whenever I talked to an employer was being honest. Yeah, I've screwed up. Oftentimes, they give me the opportunity uh, to talk about the topic. The best one was an employer once asked, what was your biggest struggle and how did you overcome it? And that was the perfect opportunity for me to go addiction, dealing with addiction. And I got to talk about the struggles I had, the challenges, in the summarized version of the past, and the struggle I had going to treatment and swallowing my pride and all those things. Um, and I didn't know what was going to happen by doing that. It scared the heck out of me. I'm like, am I really just saying this to an employer? Um, and they surprisingly took it well. And I've done that a few times. It's gone well every time on that side. Usually, once they actually get the record, then they go, well, we knew that you had made poor choices. We did not know that you made that many in a short time. That's usually where it's fallen apart in the past, but I can't change that at this point. um, but that's where the you know it can be a hindrance there. That fear, that doubt, and then it goes in, even into the dating world. Um, and I think where the doubt comes in is you start doubting yourself because you're going to have to address this, and that the possible, there's always the possible that it's a deal breaker for them, or it scares them away for whatever reason, or they don't want to go in that direction, which is understandable. But sometimes thinking about that's a possible outcome, I can sometimes start buying into it, which I don't fully buy into it, fortunately. That's where self-awareness comes in. I recognize that I'm talking myself into a potential. It's not even someone else's thoughts. It's literally a potential of what could be someone else's thoughts, and so it can real quickly become toxic thinking. if I don't become aware of it and really pull it in. But that's what the doubt is, and then so addressing it to someone, and unfortunately, most of today's dating world starts out as online, and so you're dealing with text, and so as it is, you can already get things confused with texting, and you really don't know someone through texting because even if they're honest with you, you really don't know because you don't know the way in which it's said. You can't really read their body language. You don't know how much truth is being said, or if it's merely just a line to get you to them, whatever. You really don't know until you actually talk. So that's why it's scary. But you can't wait. I mean, you can, I guess. But I didn't see the point in waiting until I actually met the person, because if I'm saying a lie or tiptoeing around it, I'm still going to have to face it. The difference is by waiting and tiptoeing around it and avoiding it, I've literally taken away some credibility to me. I've since I might have not directly lied, but I lied by omission, and that is still a lie. So, so I've owned up to it every time so far. It's worked out so far every time. Well, almost every time. But overall, it's worked out. And I truly do believe, like I said, that my biggest obstacle going forward in life, not just professionally, but personally, is doubt. Self-doubt. I I know the talents I have. I know my abilities, but sometimes I just get that doubt on it. Like I doubt what I actually think. My brain second guesses. Like I know I'm a good singer, but then my brain goes, "But are you? How good?" Or that's just one scenario. Uh, or I know I've changed. I know I've grown. Um, and the doubt will go, "But how much? Have you really?" That little bug in the back of the head, that the nagging devil's advocate in the back of the head, that really wants to make you overthink on the situations. So, but I've gotten to this point so far, and I do have no doubt. Um, I shouldn't say I have faith. That's the big thing. Um, that things will be all right. I have faith that I'll continue to grow and that I will improve in that area. So that is your Daily Biscuit for today. You will probably not be seeing this until Saturday, so it actually won't be a Friday. Andy's chomping at the bit. But like I said, 2 weeks from now, it will be a question and answer essentially. So you can send the questions whether via comment, via message. If you happen to be someone who is a friend of a family member or a friend of a friend of mine, you can also reach out to them possibly and see if they'll pass the message along. Regardless, you can always comment on the YouTube or Facebook pages, and then at least you can message on the Facebook one as well. So with that, I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you again on hopefully Monday for another Daily Biscuit. Let's see if I can do it on time. So